excited to be able to share this information with you. So today's training the topic is understanding personalities and behaviors, how to get anyone to do anything and never feel powerless again. I'm going to tell you why we have that title here in a second, but I just want to make sure that you are all aware that what you're about to learn here today is, after 13 years of being in this industry, I believe is the most critical component of what I've learned as far as my education that has helped me over the past decade to build successful teams in the industry of network marketing. This one topic is something that I learned early on, and I continue to use it literally every single day. And it's one of those topics that when I learned it, I could completely see that my business completely just exploded at that point. And so we want to make sure that when it comes to Inner Circle members, again, you represent those that we are looking to really replace us, so to speak, where we want to really take all our knowledge, everything that we have, and really give it to all of you. So this is going to be something that I highly recommend that you take some notes. And again, congratulations for all those who are able to jump on this training and get this information. So why is this topic so important? Well, number one, we are in a people business. And literally everything we do, from the moment we first talk to someone to the moment that we do a presentation for that person, to launching that person, following up with that person, training that person, mentoring them, every aspect of the process of our business, we are dealing with people. And if you can get someone to like you right away, if you can get the person to trust you right away, if you can get the person to do really anything you want them to do, obviously you're going to have more success than somebody who cannot do that. And this topic is one of the biggest topics that I've ever topic. In fact, everything you hear tonight, even though it's coming from me, that's just a mirage, because really the information doesn't come from me. Anytime you learn from any instructor, any trainer, what you don't see are the hundreds of trainers and instructors that I've learned from, that I'm passing the information along to you. And really this whole training is really a collaboration of these three books. In fact, these three books are some of my favorite books that I've ever read. Highly encourage any of you, if you have not read these, to read these. But the one is called Personality Plus by Florence Littauer. It's a book that you literally, it starts off with you taking a test. And I remember when I first read this book, it's not designed to really read from cover to cover per se. At least that's not the way I read it. When I read it, I took the test, and then the test told me what type of behavior or personality type I was. And then I went to that section of the book, and I read that section. And literally when I read that section, I thought that somebody who wrote that book was literally spying on me, peering in my window and spying on me and telling me everything literally about me that no one else would actually know. And here's this author in the book telling me these things about me, and they were so right on. I was shocked. And I said, well, maybe this is just a fluke. So I took that test and I gave it to my parents. And I had my parents take the test, because at the time I lived with my parents. And they took the test, and I went and read the section about them in the book, and it pinpointed them to a T. And then I started, taking it to my girlfriend at the time, had her take the test. And I had all these people that were close to me take the test. And I was shocked to see how right on the book was about those different types of people. I got literally fascinated about this, and this was about maybe 13 years ago. I literally got so fascinated that I became almost borderline just compulsive, where literally I would, every time I met someone, I was like, hey, nice to meet you, here, take this test, right? And I was just forcing people to take this test, but I started learning so much about people through that process. We're going to also reference a book called The Platinum Rule, which is also about personalities and behaviors. And then the reason I picked the title of today's training is because of the book to the far right, entitled literally Get Anyone to Do Anything and Never Feel Powerless Again. It's an absolutely incredible book. It's not so much about personalities and behaviors, but the things that it teaches in that book as far as human psychology and how the brain works is absolutely amazing, and it's one of my favorite books, but it does tie in very closely to what we're going to be going over here today. So a lot of the details I'm going to be sharing are going to come from these three sources. So again, we are in a people business, and so a couple questions I want you to ask yourself. Number one, have you ever known someone that you just clashed with? And I think I already know the answer to that, right? I mean, and again, guys, this is an interactive training, so feel free at any time if you want to share anything in the chat, go ahead and do that. There's going to be times I'm actually going to ask you for a response, and you're going to want to do that in the chat section. But have you ever known someone that you clashed with? We've all had someone that we've had a personality clash with, right? Have you ever tried to motivate someone and it didn't seem to work, right? It's like you're excited about something. Maybe it's the opportunity with Kayani of how much money you can make, and then you go to someone and you're telling them about how much money they can make, and they're just looking at you like a deer in headlights. They're just not excited, right? So we've experienced things like that, or situations are very similar to that. The next question, have you ever had someone join your team that didn't seem to listen to you or show you respect? This is a big one because this is a leadership call, right? And so all of you are leaders, you're leading teams of people, and if this has not happened to you yet, it will happen to you soon, where you will get to a point where there will be people that you feel like, wow, this person is just not listening to me for whatever reason. Have you ever had to deal with a difficult, quote-unquote, difficult person, either in your upline or your downline? Someone that you're just like, man, you know, if this person was not in my team, I would not be around this person. Or if this person was not in my upline, I really wish I, wouldn't have to deal with this person, right? We've had those experiences before. This is part of being in a people business. And this is the exact reason that this topic is one of the greatest topics for you to learn, because this one topic will alleviate and change every single one of these things that you see in front of you here. And so let's go right into the details. I don't want to spend a lot of time into build up. Let's get right into the meat and potatoes of the information here. So here is the fact of the matter of what you have to know. And I will make these slides available to everyone in the inner circle. So you don't have to feel free to write every single word down, but as you are hearing information that applies to you or applies to your business, jot those things down. Those are the things you want to jot down, the takeaways that are going to be specific for your business. But as far as every word on the slide, you're going to have that. This will be my gift to you. We're also going to provide you, for those who are interested, a test that you can take at the end of this on your own to determine exactly what your behavioral style is. And that's important to know so that you know how to interact with others. But here's the truth of the matter, is that every person, you and I, every person in your team, every person that you present to, every person on the planet has his or her own special way of doing things that is, number one, identifiable, and number two, predictable. That's the good news, is that every person has what's called a behavioral style or a pattern. We call it a pattern of reoccurring habits. And like any other pattern, remember the patterns that we had in grade school, right? They would tell us, okay, here's the pattern. You see a little picture on the right, blue, orange, and then it says, what comes next? And you would say, blue comes next, because you see the pattern and you knew what's going to happen. Well, that's exactly what happens with people, is that people have patterns of behavior that once you identify the pattern, it's like you can tell the future. You know exactly what that person's going to do if you put them in this situation, or if you ask this question to them, or if you ask them to do this. You can literally predict down to a science exactly what that person's going to do. Every person has a comfortable method of behaving when they're relaxed. And they're acting themselves. We've all heard that expression, just act yourself or be yourself, right? When people are relaxed, when they're home, when they're in the most relaxing state, they tend to always gravitate back to a certain patterns of behavior, which is truly who they are. We've learned as adults to survive in situations. And what I mean by that is that as you've grown up, you've learned certain skill sets that actually might go against your natural patterns of behavior, might go against your natural personality, but you might act, that's why some people you might notice act a certain way at work, but then they come home and they're a little bit different. Or they might act a certain way when they're out socializing with friends, but they don't act that way when they're at work. So we're not talking about a way that someone acts to survive in a certain situation. We're talking about how someone truly is, and you can tell that when they're in their most relaxed state. And so that's a second point that you have to understand as a foundation before we get into this. Now, here's the problem. The problem is often when we get into that relaxed state and we start acting naturally, what's natural to us, we begin to automatically alienate certain other people that's within our sphere of influence. And we do it without even realizing it. See, there's certain people that automatically will be turned off to how we are, no matter how, it's not talking about morals or how great of a person you are, but it's just a way that you behave. And there's going to be certain people that will be automatically alienated or turned off to that just by you being who you are, and you won't even realize it. What happens is when others feel uncomfortable around you, or vice versa, it creates a tension. And this tension is better known as a personality clash. So this is why we say, well, this person, I don't know what it is about this person. We've all had that, right? You don't know what it is about that person, but just something about the person, you and them, they just don't vibe, right? It just doesn't mesh. And you just can't put your finger on it. You don't know what it is, but when you're around that person, you just do not feel comfortable. You just do not feel you can be yourself. And this is that tension that happens. And guess what? Every single person on this line, when you act the way you normally act, there's always going to be someone else in the world that's going to feel this way towards you. Always, 100% of the time, without a doubt. And so we're going to go over a little bit of how to fix this situation so that's going to improve your business. Because here's the goal. The goal is to learn ways, and that's the one thing you have to realize is that everything that we're going to talk about today is learnable. It's not something that we just kind of just say, you know what, well, that's just how I am, and I guess there's this other person, we're just not going to get along. Because that would be great if you never had to deal with that person. But in business, there's certain times that you have to deal with people, whether they're in your upline or your downline or your sideline or someone in your team or someone that you're trying to recruit or someone that you're trying to get started for someone else in your team. There's always going to be people that you're going to have to deal with. And even though you do not typically would want to deal with that person outside of a work environment. And so the great thing is there's ways that you can learn, that you can deal with this person that allows that person to be comfortable with you so there's less tension between you. Because here's what happens. When there's less tension, all the positive outcomes that you want will go up. When tension goes down, positive outcomes go up. And here's some of the positive outcomes. Trust, right? Sometimes people say, well, how is it that so-and-so can just get a stranger to trust them so quickly? You know, I was always impressed by that when I saw some people who had years and years experience in this industry, how they would literally meet a stranger for the first time, maybe at the beginning of a presentation, and by 10 minutes in, they were joking, that person was having a good time, that person completely took all, boundaries down, they took all barriers down, and they just had complete trust in the person they're talking to. How does that happen? Does that person have some sort of magical credibility, personality or character or whatever that's going to allow the person to do that? Well, no, they just understand certain things about people, and they know how to communicate in a way that that person feels comfortable with them, and their tension goes down, and then positive outcomes come up. Trust, credibility. We all want credibility with our teams, with our peers. This is going to give that credibility. Creativity. See, when people feel good working with you, that's when their creative side comes out. That's when they start expressing themselves even more. Cooperation. Of course, in a team environment, we want cooperation. And that comes with everything we're talking about, that comes with part of the package. Respect, commitment, right? We want people to stay in our team long term. There's a saying in our industry that people will give up on a business all day long, but they won't give up on a friend. So you have to make your team, the individuals in your team, friends of you, because it's easy to quit on a business. It's hard to quit on a friend. And so that's going to give commitment in your team. You're going to have people staying the long term because they feel committed, not just to the business, but they feel committed to you as well. And productivity, the biggest thing we want, right? Because productivity means business building, means more money, means better lifestyle. And that productivity is a direct reflection. I've seen literally teams completely just explode because the leaders in the team understood this topic, and I've seen teams completely shatter and crash and disintegrate because individuals or certain people in the team did not understand this topic we're going to be going over here today. So take this to heart very, very closely. So here is the key. The key is to communicate with these individuals, the individuals particularly that you feel that are hard to communicate with them according to their style so that they're at ease. That is the key right there. Notice nowhere in there does it say for you to be comfortable or communicate in a way that puts you at ease. Again, we're looking to get positive results from our team and from other people. And to do that, it takes a little bit of sacrifice on our end because we might not be at ease in the way we're communicating at that time, but we're communicating according to their style to put them at ease. So in today's training, here's what we're going to learn. Number one, we're going to learn how to identify someone else's style using quick, easy-learned techniques so that you can read people and treat them the way that they want to be treated. See, we've all heard of the golden rule, right? We've all heard the golden rule. The golden rule, do unto others as others would do unto you, right? That's the true golden rule. I've heard different versions as I've traveled around the world. I've heard people say the golden rule, oh, well, the golden rule is he or she that has the gold makes the rules, right? That's one version. Some people say do unto, down in New York City, because I'm from New York, they say do unto others before they do unto you. In Jersey, they say do it to others and split. But we know that's not the real golden rule. The real golden rule, do unto others as you would want others to do to you. And that's something that I truly believe in. It's the way I believe we all should live our lives. But here's the thing. When it comes to communication, that's not the way ultimately we should always be communicating. We should treat people the way we want to be treated. But when it comes to communicating, that doesn't always work because that person may not want to be communicated with the way that we want to be communicated with. And so Dr. Tony Alessandra, incredible speaker and expert in communication and personality types, wrote a lot of great books, you can find him on YouTube, Dr. Tony Alessandra. He's actually one of the authors of the book, Platinum Rule. And he says that when it comes to communication, treat people the way you want to be treated. That's the golden rule in life. But when it comes to communication, practice the platinum rule. And the platinum rule says, do unto others or communicate with others the way that they would want to be communicated with. So it's all about identifying that individual, how they want to be communicated with, and then adapting the way we communicate to communicate with their style, to put them at ease. So we're going to teach you how you can quickly identify people's styles, and then we're going to talk about how to adjust your behavior to make all kinds of people more at ease with you and you with them. And, of course, all the positive outcomes and results that's going to come from that because of knowing the simple technique and the simple strategy. So if you're taking notes, this might be the first time that you're going to want to write down some notes. So according to the book, The Platinum Rule by Tony Alessandra, there's 4 types of behavioral styles. I love this because these descriptions really explain in the name the type of personality or behavioral style that the person has. Now, if you do extra research on this, right? I mean, there's so many books. There's so many different ways to describe this, right? I mean, some books will mention, they'll use colors, and that's one of the reasons I put these in color coordinated to kind of, if you've ever learned that, it's going to help you, because some actually use colors for the personality type. Some use, animals. Some actually use names that go way back to, Hippocrates and Socrates and during that time. That's awesome. I like the way Tony Alexander explains it, because like I said, it really defines the personality type in the actual name. The first one is called the dominant director. This is, for those who have maybe taken tests before. Again, there's Myers-Briggs, and there's a lot of different tests out there, but this is the one that they would call the red personality. We call it the dominant director. Some people in network marketing will call this a shark. Second personality is called the cautious thinker. The cautious thinker, which would be recognized as a blue personality. The third is called the steady relator. The steady relator, which is categorized as a green. And then the last is called the interacting socializer. The interacting socializer. Now, some books that you read will actually tell you that there's more than 4. They'll tell you that there's, some say there's 6, some say there's 8, some say 12. Again, there's all these different ideas of how it is, but after studying this for over a decade, I really have found that you can really, truly, in a very simple way, be able to identify individuals with really just these 4 personalities and of course, blends of them, which we'll talk about here in a second. So let's talk about quickly how to identify these 4 personality types, because you want to know if you're meeting somebody, let's just say, for the first time at a presentation, you're going to want to be able to identify them quickly so you know exactly how to communicate with them. And so let's talk about how to identify these 4 personality types. The first one, let's talk about the dominant director. So the dominant director is easy to identify. They are the natural-born leaders. Dominant directors, they are just naturally want to lead. They're very competitive in nature. In fact, they're always wanting to compete. They're concerned with being number one. In fact, in a dominant director's mind, second place is the first loser. They want to win. They want to be number one. They don't want to strive for anything else. They actually strive for results. They're very production oriented. They like results. They have a need to be in charge. It's actually an inward need to take control, to make decisions. They're very decisive. They think logically. They want facts and highlights. They like personal choices, and they actually don't mind change. They enjoy change, and they roll with it. So the dominant director has a lot of great personality strengths, especially in business. And so we look at, for dominant directors, we say, hey, they have a lot of potential to go out there and produce, because that's what they want to do. They love and they want to be number one. However, any personality type not only has strengths, but they also have natural weaknesses or natural areas of improvement. And so here's some of the natural weaknesses or areas of improvement of a dominant director. They have a tendency towards conflict. Tendency towards conflict. We're going to talk a little bit about how you can, identify a dominant director, but just for the sake of this illustration, we all know James Bradford. James Bradford, a great, one of our great mentors, Purple Diamond with the company. His dominant personality type is dominant director. And you can almost see this just by his interactions on Facebook, right? I mean, how many times have you seen him on Facebook pretty much trying to pick a fight with people, right? And saying things, trying to create a little bit of conflict, talking about the haters, and just, almost like he thrives on that, right? That's part of the tendency of a dominant director. And again, any of these natural areas of improvement can actually be used for good if the person develops those areas and knows how to use them. Dominant directors are stubborn. There's a stubbornness about them. Again, look at these. Some of these things that are considered weaknesses can actually be good in certain areas of life, right? If someone's stubborn not to give up in the business, that's actually a good thing. But again, some people, especially people that you're just meeting that haven't gone through personal development, they're going to be having these areas, but you're going to see them more as weaknesses in their life. Impatient. Dominant directors are very impatient. It's all about right now. Get to the point, get to the bottom line, get to it fast. Either get out of the way. It's lead, follow, or get out of the way. That's the attitude of a dominant director. Lead, follow, or get out of the way. I'm coming through. Dominant directors may appear cold or tough. Now, this is an appearance. I've met many dominant directors. They're actually the kindest, warmest, hardest people out there. But if you looked at them from an outward appearance, people would think that they're just cold and tough. Some people would be scared of them. They'll be like, "Oh my goodness, I don't want to get that person's bad side." But when they get to know that person, the person could be have the nicest heart in the world. But again, it's appearance from the outside. And again, if this is something that you relate to, if you can tell as I'm going through this that you're a dominant director as your number one personality type, your strongest personality type, notice your strengths and work on your strengths, or apply your strengths to your business, but then also notice your weaknesses and see what you can do to help, because maybe if you're a dominant director, one of the things you have to learn to do is to smile more, to be able to help people feel more comfortable with you when they first meet you. Or just realize that maybe what your face is portraying is not exactly what you're feeling inside. You might be feeling great, but you might be giving the message to others that you're tough, you're cold, and that you're not warm-hearted. So again, this is just appearance, but this is part of the natural weaknesses of a dominant director. Last is that they appear to have low tolerance for the feelings, attitudes, and inadequacies of others, especially the inadequacies of others. Man, if you don't know what you're talking about, why are you talking to me? That's the attitude of a dominant director. If you don't know how to do your job, why are you even here? Find someone else to go do your job. And sometimes it's just an appearance because of how their personality is. They may care about your feelings, they may care about your attitude, but they appear to have a low tolerance because of the way that they behave. It's their behavioral style. So because of the way that we think in pictures, and we remember best in pictures. So I like to give you a picture to help you remember who the dominant director is. And because of the natural strengths and natural weaknesses of the dominant director, we like to think of them as the lion, the proud, the stubborn, the strong, the courageous, natural-born leader. The no-nonsense, get out of my way, I'm doing it myself type of personality. And there's a lot of individuals that have this type of personality, but within the business, just so, we can relate to individuals. Again, I already mentioned Mr. James Bradford. His dominant personality is dominant director, lion. Mr. Nick D'Amico, my business partner, his number one personality type is dominant director, lion. Now, we call this a lion. Now, I did this training. This is actually a training that I put together for corporate companies. And I'm telling you, just so you know, this training is a training that I sold for tens and tens of thousands of dollars to corporate companies to get this exact same training that you're getting tonight for free. But just understand that, we use different animals sometimes in network marketing. Sometimes I'll call this a shark. So if you've heard shark before, that's what this personality is. The lion, the dominant director, the shark, it's all the same thing. But that's the first personality type that we're going to talk about. Second personality type we're going to talk about is called the cautious thinker. The cautious thinker. You can recognize a cautious thinker because they are perfectionists in everything they do. Their attitude is, if you want it done right, do it yourself. They think logically and they seek data. They actually feel very comfortable with numbers and data. Why? Because numbers are never wrong. They prefer to do things themselves, as I mentioned, because they're perfectionists. No one can do it better. They're very well organized. In fact, out of the four personality types, they are the most organized. You can always tell a cautious thinker by their work area, by their home, by their car. Everything has its proper place. Everything is organized, and everything is put in its proper place. In fact, I remember when I used to work in corporate America, I could identify the cautious thinkers. When you went to their desk, they literally had their pencils and their pens aligned a certain way. And, oh my goodness, do not move one of their things from one area to another. Like, do not take their pencil, move it to the other side of their desk. They will be upset. Like, they'll come back and just, like, their whole day will be just messed up. Like, oh my goodness, like, this is totally wrong, right? But because of their organization, they're also very dependable, very dependable. You give a task to a perfect or a cautious thinker, it will be done. They will put it in their calendar, they will schedule it, they will organize it, and it will get done. They like to contemplate. They're deep thinkers. They like to think things through. They're very systematic. Everything needs to have a system, and because of that, they're great with follow-through. They're very accurate, very precise with their work, and sometimes they gravitate towards quality control. A lot of times those who do quality control type of jobs are cautious thinkers. Well, that's some of the natural strengths, which are incredible strengths, especially in business. But there's some natural weaknesses, some natural areas of improvement. Natural weaknesses of a cautious thinker, they have an inward need to be right. This is huge. I'm telling you guys, I'm giving you some information that's going to change your relationships forever. If you're dealing with a cautious thinker, you have to understand they have an inward need to be right, to be accurate. Why do you think that they love numbers? Why do you think that they love, data? Because numbers never lie. Data is always right. There's a need. So we're going to come back to that in a second. Cautious thinkers, natural area of improvement, they're typically slow at making decisions. We call it paralysis by overanalysis, right? They have to literally know every detail they feel before they can make a decision. They got to think it through. And this is important for you to understand when you're doing presentations. When you got someone that, you're trying to get to make a decision, they can start in the business. If they're a cautious thinker, they're going to want to think about it, and unfortunately, they're going to take a little bit longer time to think about it. And if you try to bully them through into making a decision, you're actually going to do what I'm just warned about, will actually shut them up. They're not going to be being communicated in a way that they like to be communicated with, and they'll actually start getting turned off to you, and all those positive outcomes that you're looking for will actually reverse, and you'll lose that person forever. So that's why I'm teaching you these things. They're so important to understand. They have a stubbornness to their own way or process. Why? Because they already thought it through. They already thought the whole thing through. They know the best process. They now have it, and so why change it? This is the best process. I already thought it through. So they're very hesitant to change. They can be overly cautious and careful. They're not jumping into things too quickly or initially. And naturally, they're very private and reserved. The cautious thinker is kind of sometimes the hardest personality to really get to know because of them being so private. They typically don't have tons of associates or tons of close friends. They typically have a small group of people that they're close to, that they're open with, and they're very loyal to that small group. But they don't really let a lot of people into that inner circle in their life. So because of the natural strengths and the natural areas of improvement of a cautious thinker, we like to picture them as a fox. The cunning, smart, intelligent, but shy and reserved and private creature. You can almost see the fox, right? Like, hidden behind that tree, just kind of, out of sight, out of mind, quiet, but very smart, and always planning things and thinking things through. So some of you may identify with the cautious thinker. And again, as we go through this, if you're not sure exactly what your personality type is, again, I'm going to offer you a test at the end of this that you can take on your own time and figure out exactly what your your strongest personality type is. We have a mixture of all four, but it's the strongest followed by the second that really determines these patterns of behavior that we have. All right, so let's get right into the third personality type. Third personality type is called the Steady Relator. The Steady Relator. You can identify the Steady Relators because these are caretakers. right? These are ones that want to accommodate others. They're about helping other people. In fact, that's their main motivation, is to help others. They look for calmness and peace in every situation. In fact, typically they become the mediators and the peacemakers in almost any situation, right? If there's a situation with a group and there's a rivalry or a competition or some sort of, just upset within the group, you will always see the steady relator try to mediate the situation. They try to make peace in the situation. They're trying to get between everything. Like, everything's going to be good, guys. Don't worry. Group hug, guys. Group hug. Right? That's the steady relator. They have a patient perseverance. Which means that you can push or prod a steady relator for a long time. Like, literally, you can almost like irritate them, right? Just like if you can imagine a person just like tapping somebody in the same spot, right? A steady relator, you could tap them, same spot, over and over and over and over. And it's not a real illustration, but I'm just giving you a visual of what I mean by patient perseverance. Typically, that person that's getting bothered, who's a steady relator, will not say anything for a long time. They're going to let you keep doing that. They're going to just patiently persevere. Whereas the exact opposite personality, the dominant director, the lion, you tap them one time, they're going to let you know. They're going to turn around and be like, why'd you tap me? Why'd you touch me? So understand the personality differences. They like personal involvement. They're concerned with stability. So important when it comes to doing presentations, important when it comes to, hitting the hot button of what they would be interested in as far as an opportunity to have stability within the home, within their finances. That's going to be something huge for them, more so than talking about making a whole bunch of money, right? Talking about a whole bunch of money to a steady relator might not interest them. That might be why you're saying, hey, why can't I get this person motivated? I'm sitting here telling them about all the money they can make. Whereas maybe you need to be talking about more about the stability for their family, for their future, for their finances, because this is what they're very concerned about. They're easy to get along with. In fact, out of the 4 personality types, steady relators are the easiest to get along with. Everyone loves a steady relator. They don't say anything to make you upset. They completely avoid confrontation. And so they're so easy to get along with. Everyone's like, wow, this person's so great to get along with. I love this person. And self-sacrificing. A steady relator thinks of themselves usually first and other people, again, because it's all about helping other people. And so you'll find that they're very self-sacrificing. Now, that's some of the strengths. Steady relators also have natural weaknesses. Some of the natural weaknesses of a steady relator. All right. Number 1, they have a difficulty with speaking up. So typically a steady relator, even if they have an opinion or they have a problem, they typically won't mention it, right? They just have a difficulty. They just kind of keep it to themselves, and they won't say anything. They seemingly go along with others and conditions. Key word here is seemingly, right? They might have their own agenda or their own plan, but they're not going to let you know what it is. They're going to just kind of go along. Oh, whatever you want to do, yeah, I'll do that too. And they just kind of go along with it, whereas they might actually have their true plan, deep away where they're just not going to share it. Can be easily taken advantage of, especially by dominant directors, right? Remember the dominant director position. They want to take control. They want to make decisions. And now here's a personality that whatever, I'm just going to go along with whatever you decide. So if you decide, yeah, I'll just go along and do whatever it is, right? And so, they can, because of that, especially if they haven't developed themselves, can be taken advantage of by other people. They will give in naturally as part of the natural personality. They will give in to avoid confrontation, right? You win, whatever, you win. Again, remember the dominant directors? Dominant directors want to win. They want to be number 1. Second place is the first loser. So a dominant director wants to compete. They want to win. If they try to compete against a steady relator will be like, okay, fine, you win. They'll give in to avoid confrontation. They're very non-confrontational. There's a reluctance to express themselves and their feelings. Why? Because I don't want to stir things up. I don't want to say something that somebody else is not going to like. So even though I have my own feeling, my own thought, I'm just not going to express that. So there's a lack of assertiveness on many steady relators. They are also known to be indecisive. Why are they indecisive? Again, they don't want to make a decision that someone else is not going to like. So you typically will see this happen when a dominant director and a steady relator maybe go out on a date, right? So they go out on that first date, and the dominant director says, so, what, we're going to go see a movie. What movie you want to see? And the Steady Relator says, oh, whatever movie you want to see. It doesn't matter to me, whatever. And they're like, oh, okay, well, dinner. What do you want to do for dinner? Oh, whatever you want to do. It doesn't matter to me, whatever you want to do. And literally, without realizing it, the dominant director starts getting frustrated. And they're like, just make a decision already. And the Steady Relator is like, well, I don't care, whatever you want to do. And so because of that, they seem to be indecisive. But again, it goes back to the personality behavior of not wanting to cause a confrontation or do something that somebody else doesn't like. And then the last one is they seem to be as lazy. Now, this doesn't mean that all Steady Relators are lazy, but it's the personality and the behavior type. And here's the best way I can describe this. It's just about, with a Steady Relator, it's all about energy exertion, right? It's all about exerting the least energy possible. So it doesn't mean the person is completely lazy and just doesn't want to work, is lazy on the couch all day. But whatever they do, they're going to want to exert as least energy as possible. I mean, here's a perfect analogy. If you're in a room and there's a Steady Relator there in the room and you're waiting in the waiting room, and there's a seat and there's an option to stand or sit, the Steady Relator is going to sit every single time. It's just that's just what I talk about when we talk about this behavioral style. So when it comes to the natural strengths and natural weaknesses of the Steady Relator, we like to think of them as the koala bear, right? The lovable, huggable, peaceful, calm, non-aggressive, caring animal. And for those in network marketing, we also sometimes call this a whale. So sometimes we refer to sea animals. The lion will be a shark. The fox will be an urchin. The koala will be a whale. And so some of you may be relating to this personality as well. The last personality we're going to talk about is called the Interacting Socializer. The Interacting Socializer. This one, I believe, is one of the easiest personalities to identify. This person just loves to have fun. Loves to have fun. It's like literally that's their driving force. That's their motivation. It's just to be able to go out and have a good time. They're concerned with approval and appearance. Interacting Socializer, they want to look good, and they want you to tell them that they look good. So they're concerned with that appearance of how they look, but they also want to be told that they look good. They want that approval. They need involvement. In fact, it's an actual need. They need involvement. They need people contact. One of the worst things you could ever do to an interacting socializer is put them in solitary confinement. That's like the worst thing you could do because they need people around them. They seek enthusiastic people and situations. It has to be fun. It has to be exciting. It has to be enthusiastic. And they're going to gravitate towards that. If they go to a meeting, for example, and it's not exciting, it's not enthusiastic, you've lost them right off the bat. They're comfortable being the center of attention. Interacting socializers will become presenters very, very quickly. In fact, they're the ones that literally sometimes at the very first presentation or like at the first meeting, right, they'll stand up and in front of a group of people, they'll start talking, they'll start telling jokes. They don't mind being the center of attention. And they're very persuasive talkers. In fact, out of the 4 personality types, they are the most persuasive. They have what's called the gift of gab. Right? And, they can win an argument and not even know what they're talking about. They just know they're very persuasive in what they say. That's some of the strengths. Now, some of the natural weaknesses is they can be seen to have too much involvement in things, right? I mean, they're doing this activity, they're doing that activity, they're part of this membership, and they're part of this club, and they're part of this, and they're doing that, and they got so much different things they have going on because they like the social part of being involved with different clubs and organizations, and sometimes they'll just have too much going on. They typically will have short attention spans. So interactive socializer, right? It's like they're trying to learn, they're trying to even in this training, right? If they're an interactive socializer, I guarantee they've already been off this training a few times. They've been on their Facebook. They've been on, their LinkedIn. They've, turned on the TV a little bit. I mean, their attention span is just so short. They always have to be kind of drawn back into whatever they're doing. Again, another very impatient personality because they're very fast-paced. Everything has to be fast-paced, has to be fun and fast-paced. And if not, they're going to get bored and impatient. And that's why the next one says easily bored. Easily bored with things. Just, if it's not moving quickly, they get bored. And we're going to talk about how this affects other areas of their business and life as well. They need help getting organized. Out of the 4 personality types, this is the one that's usually the least organized by nature. Again, organization is a skill. It's something that can be learned, and some interacting socializers have learned this out of necessity, but by nature, and if you are an interacting socializer and you convert back and you put yourself back into your natural state when you're the most relaxed, you'll know this to be true. That, and that's typically why sometimes, and here's how you'll know, because the complete opposite is the fox, who's completely organized in everything they do. Every area of their life is organized. The interactive socializer, maybe your workspace is organized because you've learned to do that out of necessity, but how's your car look? Or how's your room look? That's how you'll know, if in your natural state, if this is true. But they need naturally more time, more help being organized. It's usually a development or a skill that they have to work on. Not committed to finish what is started. Now, here's what I mean by this. It's not saying that they're not a committed person. What this means is that typically this personality type, it's hard for them to finish what they started. Here's why. So they will start a new project. They'll get really excited about it, and because they have the gift of gab, they'll get you really excited about it, and then they get bored with it. And because they get bored, then they go out and find another project, and then they get really excited about that project, and then they get you really excited about that project, and then time goes on, they get bored with it. And then they go find something else exciting. They go find another, a project, and then they get really excited about it, and they get you excited about it, and it just keeps going on and on. Before you know it, time goes on, and you look back, and they've had all these things they started but never finished, and it just goes back to them not truly understanding their own personality behavior, that this is a behavior that's natural, and all they have to do is identify it, work on that weakness, and make a decision that, this one thing, I'm going to complete to the end. I'm going to continue. I'm not going to stop because I've stopped everything else in my life. And so, again, that's a natural weakness of this personality type. Last thing is may appear overly talkative to some, right? Some people will look at the interacting socializer and be like, wow, that person can just talk and talk and talk and talk. So because of the natural strengths and weaknesses of the interacting socializer, we like to think of them as the dolphin, the fun-loving, entertaining, want to be center of attention, talkative creature. I mentioned the first personality type, some people that fall into that personality. I didn't mention the other 3. When it comes to the dolphin, in our own business, just something that we can relate to, one of our great dolphins, great friends of ours, and incredible leader, Mr. Brad Parko. That's one of his dominant personality type is dolphin. And so, maybe you were already thinking about that when I was going through the details. We talk about cautious thinker. Who's a leader that's a cautious thinker? A leader who's a cautious thinker would be Todd Thompson. If you remember this, the fox. Todd Thompson, he's the guy who creates all the details with Interacting Social. Again, some of you may be like, who's Todd Thompson? Well, that's exactly the point, right? A cautious thinker, you don't see them. They're not out. They're complete opposite of the dolphin. They don't want to be center of attention. They're hidden away, doing things that they like data, they like numbers, they like analytical stuff. That's Todd Thompson. That's definitely his dominant personality type is the fox, the cautious thinker. The koala, the steady relator. Mr. Brandon Stevens, that's his number 1 personality type. If you haven't guessed already, that's actually my personality type, my number 1, my dominant. There's others, but that's the dominant for myself as well. So those are the 4 personality types. Now here's the fact of the matter. Every person has a little of all these characteristics within them. So we can't say that somebody is 100% one personality type. Because we're all individuals, we all are unique, and we all have our own unique blend of all 4 of these personality types. That's why if you took the test, you would find that you would get numbers in all 4 of the quadrants, all 4 of the areas. You would get some numbers. However, what you would find is there's always one area that's dominant. There's always one area that has the most numbers when you take the test. So there's always one dominant trait followed by a secondary trait. So you have your dominant and then you have your second highest numbers. And those 2, the blend of those 2 really make up your behavioral style. And when you understand the blend of those 2, you know and predict exactly what that person is going to be and what they're going to do and how you can interact with them. So to give you an idea of how the blends work, here is how the blends work. They work like this every time. There's no other combination that can work. This is how the blends work. So if you looked at this quadrant at the top left-hand corner, you have the dominant director, the lion, or some people call it the shark. To the top right, you have the interacting socializer, the dolphin. To the bottom left, you have the cautious thinker, the fox, or some call the urchin. And then you have bottom right, the steady relator, the koala, or some will call the whale. So if you look at the blends at the top, the dominant director and the interactive socializer, that is what's called a natural blend. So that blend at the top right there happens often in nature, and it's natural. Why is it natural? Because everything, if you look at that horizontal line, everything above that horizontal line is a more outgoing type personality. So that's natural to have a blend between a dominant director and an interactive socializer. You're just an outgoing person. Whereas below the line is more of an introverted type personality. And so that's why, the cautious thinker and the steady relator, that's a natural blend. That happens very naturally in nature. And again, that's more, you're going to find that person to be more reserved, more quiet, more introverted. Now let's talk about these natural blends for a second, because these natural blends, if you have the natural blend, if you either are dominant director for your first, followed by interacting socializer as your second, or vice versa, if you have interacting socializer as your first, followed by dominant director as your second, then here's what you'll learn about that blend. That blend is a very incredible leader. They're outgoing. They can lead people. They can get people to take action. But that blend also is a very manipulative blend. Some in a good way, some in a bad way. Again, it's all about knowing the fact and using it towards either good or bad. Some people you'll meet in life, they've learned that about themselves and they use it for the bad. They know they can manipulate people, and they do that. But some will use that skill and that natural ability as a pro, and instead of really manipulating, using that as an opportunity to lead people to do the things that they should be doing. And so because that is an incredible leader and does very, very well in this type of business. The bottom hemisphere, the cautious thinker and the steady relator blend. It's a more introverted blend, more quiet. However, it's more focused on people. It's more people-oriented, whereas the top blend is more self-oriented. So the top two blends, it's more concerned with self usually, whereas the two bottom blends are usually more concerned with others and more, people-oriented. But, would probably feel very comfortable using the done-for-you system, being in front of a computer, and that's what they would love to use. Now let's talk about the complementary blends. This you'll see a little bit less in nature, but when you do see it, it's incredible because one personality type will complement the other. So you have the dominant director and the cautious thinker. Let's use that. That's a complementary blend. Why is that complementary? Because the dominant director is outgoing. The cautious thinker is more introverted. So those, some of the pros will complement some of the cons of the others. And that's why if I was going through some of the pros or the weaknesses or the strengths of each personality, you might have been like, okay, well, I relate to a lot of those, but there's some of them that I don't relate to. Well, you probably have a blend. You probably have a complementary blend where some of the strengths of one outweigh the weaknesses of the other. So when it comes to this complementary blend, the dominant director, cautious thinker, here's what they found is that this blend typically has the most success than any other blend when it comes to business. And usually this blend has everything that they need to make it to the top of whatever endeavor they want to do. Now, that doesn't mean that no other personality type can make it to the top of anything they do. It's just that this blend has a natural abilities. This was born with some of the natural gifts that allows them to do very, very well, especially in business. Because number one, they're dominant directors, so they take action. They want to go make things happen. They're producers, but because of that cautious thinker side, they also are very analytical, very structured. They'll make a plan, so they'll actually make the plan, and then they'll go after that plan, and they'll shoot for that plan. However, some of the cons of that blend is very, again, production orientated, but very low when it comes to human relations or dealing with people. It's usually all about the job, all about the execution of whatever the plan is. And so if you're that personality, number one, be happy. You have everything you need to really make it to the top of every endeavor. But in order to make it to the top in this business, you have to deal with people. And so if you're that personality blend, then know that you're going to have to develop your people skills. You're going to have to develop, getting along with other people, because in this business, that's a definite. We cannot build this business without having to deal with people. Now, the complementary blend on the other side, the Interacting Socializer and the Steady Relator, again, there's pros and cons that complement each other. This blend will be a blend that is going to be more people-oriented. And it won't be so much on production or tasks, but it'll be more people-oriented. But it's good because, some of the outgoingness of the Interacting Socializer will outweigh some of the shyness of the Steady Relator. This is actually my blend. So it's hard for me to explain it, but I can just say, well, if you know me, then that's the best way you can explain this blend. My number one is the Steady Relator, followed by the Dolphin, the Interacting Socializer. So again, as you take the test, you're going to see that you have a dominant followed by a second, and those are going to be the ones that are going to help you know what your natural tendencies are, but more importantly, how to interact with others. So let's take a quick test. This is going to be an interactive activity we're going to do here. I want to see your answers on the chat box on the left-hand side. So I want to see if you've learned how to identify people. So can you identify their dominant, keyword, their dominant personality types? And here's the two individuals, Robin Williams and the character of Spock, not Leonard Nimoy, but the character Spock. So I want to see your answers. Go ahead and put in the chat box. Who do you think Robin Williams? What personality type? You can say the animal that helps you, lion, fox, dolphin, or koala, and Mr. Spock as well. So let's see what you guys have. So I see dolphin. Now, which one would that be? Which one is a dolphin? You can put initials too. You can put like MS. Mr. Spock is a. Okay, perfect. So I got someone that says Robin Williams is a dolphin. It just seems like a very difficult to get. Interacting Socializer and Cautious Thinker. I have Robin Williams dolphin. So you said it here on the certain. All right. So it looks pretty unanimous. I keep seeing Robin Williams as the Interacting Socializer, and I keep seeing Mr. Spock as the Cautious Thinker. So is that your final answer? Looking like it's pretty unanimous. Let's find out. You guys are absolutely right. Robin Williams is the Interacting Socializer. His personality when he was alive, and it was a very, very sad loss recently to see him go. But you could see, and that's what's amazing about his films, right? Is he lives on through his films, and just through his films, and on stage and off stage, his personality shined through. You could tell that he was an Interactive Socializer. That's fun-loving, center of attention, loves to have a good time, Interactive Socializer. The personage of Mr. Spock, the character Mr. Spock, he was the personification of a cautious thinker, right? It was completely like everything was logical, everything was data, there was no emotion whatsoever, it was just black or white, right? Now here's what I want you to think about. What if can you imagine if Robin Williams recruited Mr. Spock into his business and he had to train him and teach him? Can you imagine that interaction? Can you see how there would be such a big challenge in that interaction as Robin Williams is joking around, having a great time, trying to, have a great time, and then Mr. Spock's looking at him like, can you just get to the point? And, this guy is just foolish, right? So unless one knew how to adapt to talk to the other, it would be really, really hard. Or can you imagine if Mr. Spock recruited Robin Williams into his business. And he's trying to go over all the details of every little thing about every little, compensation plan, the check matching, and blah, blah, blah. And Robin Williams is sitting there just bored out of his mind, just, yawning. And just like, when are we going to get to the fun part? So do you see how the different personalities, these two personalities naturally alienate each other when they're both acting in their natural state. And this is going to happen always in our dealings with other people. Well, let's get into the next one. Let's see how you can do on this one. Can you identify their dominant personality trait? Donald Trump and the late Princess Diana. Donald Trump and the late Princess Diana. If I had music, I'd play the Jeopardy sound. Do, 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 do. Donald Trump and Princess Diana. All right. Awesome. So I'm seeing mostly the same thing. I'm seeing Donald Trump as the dominant director, lion or the shark. And I'm seeing Princess Diana as the koala, the whale, the steady relator. Let's find out. You guys are absolutely right. Donald Trump, the dominant director, is definitely, his personality shines through that, make it happen, make it to the top. One of the reasons he's a billionaire, right? Just that whole personality, just, get it done, get out of my way. You're fired, right? We all know Donald Trump. That's that dominant personality type. And then Princess Diana, the late Princess Diana, she was known really throughout the world for all her humanitarian causes she did and how many people she helped. In fact, that's the reason that when she passed away in her memorial, there was so many people that plugged into that because the whole world loved Princess Diana. She was that steady relator. So very good. So you guys have learned how to identify the personality types. Now, how do you best use this knowledge? We're in our last piece here of our training here today. Let's talk about now the how. How are you going to best use this knowledge? The key to knowing this is not so that you can identify people and just what's the word I'm looking for? It's not about classifying people, right? It's not being able to say, oh, that's a lion, that's a koala, and just put them in a class. That's not what this is about. Because if that's all this is about, then that was a waste of an hour of our training. Because it's only going to be valuable to you if you can take this knowledge and use it to your ability to now communicate with them in a way that's going to allow you to get good results from that person. And the key word to do that is adaptability. Adaptability, being able to adapt like a chameleon, your own communication style to each person that you're dealing with. And here's something that's not the good news. This is not going to feel normal to you. It's not going to feel normal. It's just as not as normal as Mr. Spock having to not go through all the details and to simplify it and actually crack a smile and make it fun when he's explaining the business to Robin Williams. It's going to be not as normal feeling as it would be for Donald Trump to talk to Princess Diana, and instead of just jumping down her throat and saying, you're fired, but being able to say, to actually slow down a little bit, to calm down a little bit, and to actually talk to her more on a personal level first to kind of draw her in, and then make the request that he wants to make of her. Adaptability does not feel normal, and this is why it is one of the hardest things to actually pull off, and it takes months and years of practice to fully be able to be a chameleon and adapt yourself to the person that you're dealing with. But I'm going to give you all the information that you're going to need to know how to adapt yourself. So let's go through some of it here. If my computer didn't lock up on me, here we go. All right, so how to develop a positive connection with dominant director. So if you're not a dominant director, but you're dealing with a dominant director, here's what you need to know to make that dominant director actually, have a positive connection with you, that they actually respect you, they actually listen to you, they actually do what you want them to do. Number one, they respond best to direct, logical communication. So you got to get direct, logical, quickly get to the point. And the key word is quickly. Don't beat around the bush. Don't talk about do the what do we call it, small talk, right? The small talk that typically happens, right? Dominant directors, you actually want to get to the point. The best presentations, I've signed up more dominant directors in a 15-minute presentation than I've done doing hour presentations, right? The hour presentation is really for other personality types, but the dominant director, they're going to be more likely to sign up if you just do a 15-minute presentation. Boom, 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 just quickly. Present issues logically. Demand their attention and respect, especially if you're the opposite personality, the exact opposite. Oh, and by the way, I do got to share that because that's something that is going to make the most sense to everybody. If you go back to this chart here, you notice how I talked about the blends of the natural blends and the complementary blends, but I never talked about a blend of the opposites, right? The dominant director and the steady relator, or the cautious thinker and the interacting socializer. I never mentioned those blends. Do you know why? Because according to experts, now this is according to experts and what experts have studied on these personality types, they say that that is not possible naturally. It's not possible naturally. Now, that it doesn't mean it doesn't happen. It does happen from time to time, but it's not natural. Typically, if they say if you have a blend and you're exact opposites, and it's a true blend, then usually that was created because of some dramatic occurrence that happened in a person's life. They almost have a split personality. But naturally, it cannot happen in nature because the two opposites are exactly that. They are complete opposites of each other. Now, what's my point with saying that? Is guess what two personalities typically don't get along the most? You're right. The complete opposite, right? The dominant director usually can't really get along that well with the steady relator, and the interacting socializer can't really get along well with the cautious thinker. Now, they may get along, but there's always going to be certain things that are going to really kind of irritate the person about it. For example, dominant director will look at the steady relator as being too slow, indecisive. Just come on, just make a decision, do something. The steady relator will look at the dominant director as being a jerk, being overbearing, being bossy. The cautious thinker and the interacting socializer, the cautious thinker will look at the interacting socializer as being too haphazard, too risky, too, how can you make a decision that quickly? The interacting socializer will look at the cautious thinker as being too uptight, not having fun, not being willing to take risks or chances. So these personalities are the ones that we typically have the biggest issue with, is the ones that's directly opposite. And this is a complete side note, but guess in relationships, because I've used this training a lot to teach relationships, right? And that's not what this is about, but again, this training is going to help you in all areas of your life. It's going to help you in your business and in your personal life as well. But guess in relationships, what relationships typically work, or what types of people usually come together initially in relationships? You probably are thinking what I'm going to say. Usually it tends to happen to be the exact opposites. Why? Because of that age-old saying, opposites attract. We typically will see something about somebody, and here's what it comes down to, is that we are attracted to strength. Human beings are attracted to strength. So we meet somebody, they have strength in areas that we have weakness, that causes our, as human beings, to naturally be attracted to that person because we're attracted to strength. And a lot of times couples will end up being couples, and they have complete opposite personalities. And then those same things that cause them to be attracted at first, over time, those little other things start irritating them because they're exact opposites or in areas. And that's why this training on adaptability helps every area of your life. It truly, truly, truly does. So I had to share that because I need to get back to how to deal with personality. So if you're the exact opposite, if you're a koala, and you're talking to a dominant director, so we're on the line that says demand their attention and respect. This is very important, especially if you're the exact opposite. If you're a koala, you have to literally, if you want to get a positive interaction from a dominant director, you actually have to demand their attention and their respect. You have to actually stand up for yourself. You have to literally, show them that you're not a pushover, and they will actually respect that, and they will actually, be attracted to that and drawn to that. Do your homework. Know what you're talking about when you're talking to a dominant director, because they'll call you out on your bluff very quickly. Be direct, be brief, be specific in your conversation. Be productive yourself. A dominant director, they thrive on production. They like production. So to have a positive connection with them, be someone who produces. Be a producer, and they're going to respect you just because you're a producer. Verbalize your feelings. They need you to say it. What I mean by that is that dominant directors oftentimes are not the best at reading your emotions. And I've seen all the time where people will have a upset with a dominant director, and the dominant director's like, well, they never said anything. I didn't know that they were feeling that way. They never said it. And that's what they just said there is exactly the point. They need you to say it to them. They really do, because if you don't say it, they just assume that you're fine. Support their decisive nature. They like to make decisions, to support that. Promote their intelligent reasoning when appropriate. Be prepared with facts and figures, and respect their need to make their own decision their own way. So just a little bit of tips. Again, we're going to give you these slides so you don't have to write all these down. How to develop a positive connection with a cautious thinker. Approach them in a indirect, non-threatening way. So when you're going to have a conversation with a cautious thinker, you have to do it in a way where it's non-threatening, kind of almost indirect too, how you approach them. Think about this fox hiding behind this tree, right? You wouldn't just run up on that fox hiding behind the tree all quick like, right? I mean, that thing's going to take off running. You would have to indirectly approach it, be non-threatening. And that's the same way with a cautious thinker. Be sensitive and soft-spoken in your approach. Show them facts, preferably in writing. They're going to want to see the facts. Be sincere and genuine. Being sincere, being genuine, being well-behaved, well-mannered, behaving appropriately, all these things cause you to have a positive connection, especially with cautious thinkers. Because in their mind, things are black or white, and if you are well-behaved, that's going to cause them to have a closer trust with you. Limit their risk level, promote their creativity, appreciate them. This is a big one right here. Appreciate them. Cautious thinkers, all people have this need, but I really found that cautious thinkers have a specific need to be appreciated and understood. And so sometimes it's easy just to say, it's simple. It's as simple as just simply telling them sometimes that, hey, I appreciate what you're doing. Hey, I appreciate, this spreadsheet that you made for me. Wow, that's absolutely incredible. I really, really appreciate it, right? Because that's what they'll do. They'll make a spreadsheet for you and appreciate it, and or let them know that you understand them, and they're going to appreciate that in itself. Allow ample time for them to gather their thoughts before expressing themselves. Again, you might ask a question to a cautious thinker. You might see them actually pause for a moment. And it might be a little bit longer than you might like normally, especially if you're a fast-paced personality. If you're a dominant director, if you're a lion, or if you're a dolphin, those are fast-paced personality types, whereas the koala and the fox are slow-paced. So if you're a fast-paced personality, you might be like, well, what's the answer? Tell me, what is it? Yes or no? What do you want to do? And just by doing that, you are now putting up a wedge between you and that person, because you're not talking to them in the way that they like to be communicated with. Give them the time. Let them, gather their thoughts. Let them think it through. Let them respond. Be loyal to them, because cautious thinkers are very loyal to other people. Again, they typically don't have a lot of friends or a lot of acquaintances, but they have a small group of people that they are very close to and very loyal. They are so loyal to that group of people. If they let you into their circle, they are loyal to the end. And so that's something that's going to cause you to stay in their circle with them, is to be loyal to them as well. And do your thorough analysis before communicating with them. So that's how you make a positive connection with a cautious thinker. Interacting Socializer. Show them that you admire them and that you like them. Tell them that. Avoid involve details, right? Remember, again, Mr. Spock, don't go through all the details with Robin Williams. Focus on the big picture. Just paint the big picture for them. Keep it fast and lively. Be positive and proactive with them in their life. Adore and praise them legitimately. They like that. Accept their playful teasing, right? Some dolphins, they don't know the line between teasing and flirting sometimes. They really don't. And you almost have to just realize that that's part of their nature, and you almost have to accept that as not as something, that is, inappropriate, but really understanding that that's just part of their nature. Remember that they are more sensitive than they appear. Value their social interacting skills and people connections. Remember, they hold feelings deeply. The dolphins are very emotional creatures and very emotional personality type, and so is the cautious thinker, but their emotions are different. The cautious thinker will have good weeks and bad weeks. The interacting socializer will have good minutes and bad minutes. Like literally, like one moment they're very, very excited, and then all next minute they're like, "Oh, the world coming to an end. This is terrible." And then next minute, like as soon as and it's crazy. If you know someone's interacting socializer, you know this about them, right? It's like, and then they're sad. You think like the end's over, the end of the world's over, and then like minutes later they're like, "Okay, I'm back. I'm good," and they're just completely back to, and that's just the emotions of an interacting socializer. Whereas a cautious thinker is very emotional as well, but when they're down for a while. Like they have the whole day's bad, the next day is bad, the whole week is bad, and then when they get up, they're up for a while, And it says promote creative and fun activities for them, and allow them opportunities for verbal expression. That's probably the most important thing to do with interactive socializers. You actually have to let them talk. Let them talk. Listen to them. They have that need to talk. They have to verbally express themselves. Let that happen. The more you will let them talk, the more they're going to like you. That's actually something straight from the book, How to Get Anyone to Do Anything and Never Feel Powerless Again. One of the greatest ways to create a personal connection with somebody is to let them talk and you listen. And by the end of that, they actually like you better, and they're like, wow, that person's a great communicator, and you didn't say anything. You just listened to them the whole time. And there's a whole psychology behind why that's the truth, but we won't get into that today. So how to develop a positive connection with a steady relator. Number one, so you're dealing with a koala, be kind. Never, ever, ever yell at a steady relator. The best thing I can tell you is a story that will explain why that's the case. Again, my personality, my number one personality is steady relator. And a steady relator, they will completely, out of spite, they won't fight you and they won't retaliate, but just out of spite, they will completely not do what you want them to do. And the perfect story I can tell you is that one time I was actually at a convention. This was early on in my network marketing career. I was actually with one of my mentors, and we stayed in the same room. We had two separate beds, twin beds, in the same room. And we stayed up late the night before, and in the morning we had to get up for this convention, and the alarm goes off, and we're both exhausted. And all of a sudden, I hear from one bed to the other, this young man, again, was a mentor of mine, but we were basically friends at this point. He yelled over, he's like, Dana, go take a shower. And I'm sitting there in my bed thinking to myself, no, he didn't just yell at me to go take a shower. And I was like, because the alarm went off, he didn't want to get out of bed, so he just, he wanted me to go do it first. And so I'm just laying in bed saying, you know what, I'm just going to act like I didn't hear him. So I just keep laying there. And then all of a sudden he yells again. He's like, Dana, get up. I know you're hearing me. Get up right now. And I'm just laying there like just not saying a word, just like I'm just literally stubborn. I'm just literally know that I am not moving. There's no way I'm moving the way he's talking to me. And he says, he's a big guy too. He said, Dana, I know you heard me. If I have to get up out of bed right now, I'm gonna swear I'm gonna come over there and I'm gonna steamroll you. Big guy, that would have hurt. Right? And I'm just saying there, I'm like, I did not respond, but I was just acting like I was sleeping, but I was like, I am not moving. I was just dead set that I was not going to do what he wanted me to do because of him yelling for me to do it. Now, here's what he didn't realize, and this is the, maybe some of you realize from taking this training. If he would have just simply asked another way, and maybe you can guess how he should have asked, right? How would you deal with a steady relator? If he knew how to deal with a steady relator, all he would have had to say, the very first time alarm goes off, all he would have to say is, "Oh man, I'm so tired. I do not want to get out of bed right now. Hey Dana, hey, can you do me a favor? Can you go take a shower right now so I can actually get like 5-10 more minutes of sleep, man? Because I really need it. I would appreciate it so much." If he said that to me as a steady relator, guess what I would have did? I would have jumped right out of bed and went and took a shower so that he could have got more sleep. So if you want a steady relator to get something done, never, ever, ever yell or demand them to do it. If you want them to do it, instead, ask them to help you and to do you a favor, and they'll do it. Demonstrate your personal interest in them. Show reasoning and logic, provide data or proof. Create a relaxing and calm tone for the conversation. Again, they want calmness and peace. Provide a structure or boundaries for them to operate in, because again, most of the time they're not decisive, so you have to kind of give them a structure to operate in. Be patient and gentle. Introduce options and ideas for their involvement. Be simple and open. Acknowledge and accept their individuality. Be casual, informal, and relaxed in your communication style. Look for nonverbal cues to their feelings. Again, they won't tell you how they're really feeling. They don't want to stir any things up. They don't want to make you upset. So you got to look for nonverbal cues. This is the steady relator is the person in your team that you're like, hey, so how's things going? They're like, oh, things are awesome. I'm loving everything. Loving my business. Okay, I'll see you next week. Next week you see them at the meeting. Hey, how things going? Things are going good. Oh yeah, great. Well, I'll see you next week. Next week you're like, how things going? Oh, things are going good. Next week you go to the meeting, they don't show up. They're gone. You call them, they don't answer. Just gone. MIA, gone. Because they really were not doing good, but they're not going to tell you that. So you have to actually look for nonverbal cues to how they're feeling and be able to notice that and pull them aside and say, hey, listen, I can tell that you're just, you're kind of down and out. What can I do to help you? What can I do? We're going to do this together, And you have that personal conversation, doing all the things you saw on this sheet with that conversation with that person. That person is going to be loyal to you. They're going to stick with you, and they're going to continue to grow and build. And listen quietly. If you're getting them to talk, if they finally open up their shell to talk to you, then listen. Let them talk, because it took them a lot of courage just to start talking. So once they do, let them talk. So last part of how to use this to your advantage is what comes down to edification. So in the business that we're a part of, we always edify, and edification is building up somebody else, because in this business, right, we can't do it alone. We got to have other people that we work with, and one of the greatest tools in using each other to build our business is edification. Me building up someone else, like Mr. Brad Parko, me building him up so that now I can get somebody in front of him and he becomes the expert instead of me becoming the expert. And this is so important. That's why, before every presentation, we edify, right, the person that's speaking. Before every presentation, home meeting that you do, you edify the speaker. Before a conference call, we edify the speaker. So the edification is so important to understand. And I'm going to show you how, knowing the 4 personality types, you can become the best edifier in the world. Because if you edify the speaker and you touch on at least one of all 4 of the personality types, no matter what the person is that's hearing you edify, when they hear that one specific point, they're going to be like, wow, I like this guy. Wow, I want to meet this guy. Wow, I can't wait to talk to this guy after the meeting. So when we edify, we do our best to really touch on all 4 of the personality types. Now, obviously, if you're talking to somebody and you know their personality type, then you can really hammer one of the areas more than others. But if you don't know, if you're unsure, then just hit all 4 of the personality types. So if I'm edifying someone like Mr. Brad Parka, for example, I'm going to make sure I touch all 4 of the personality types. So here's a couple of examples. If I'm edifying him, I'm going to say, listen, I'm so excited this gentleman is coming over to my home. He's what's called a diamond. He's literally, in my opinion, the definition of success. I mean, he's been so successful, and this gentleman is responsible for leading the expansion of a $250 million company into the Texas marketplace. See, if that person I'm talking to is a dominant director, if they're a lion, that's what they want to hear. Like, they hear that, they're like, I got to meet that person. That's definition of success, leading the expansion of a $250 million company. Yes, I need to meet that person. And so that's going to attract the person. That's a dominant director. A steady relator, they're going to hear the next part, and that's going to attract them. Because I'm going to continue and say, but the only reason Mr. Parkhill is so successful is because he's helping so many people. I mean, he's helped literally members in his own family have tremendous success. He prides himself on helping so many other people. In fact, he's helped me personally every step of the way from day one. So now the person I'm talking to is a steady relator. Guess what? They're like, oh, wow, I got to meet this person. He likes to help people. That's like me too. I want to meet this person. But you can't stop there, because what if you're talking to someone and they're not a dominant director or a steady relator? You just stop there. They're going to be like, oh, whatever, I don't want to meet this person, right? Because if they're a dolphin, they're thinking, successful person, no, this person's probably stuck up, snobbish. This person's going to be no fun. So that's why I continue. And I say, but you know how most successful people, they're kind of stuck up and snobbish, and, that's not Mr. Parkhill. Oh, my goodness, he's so down to earth. He's so cool. You can meet him on the street. You would never know he's had the success that he's had. I mean, he's just a great person to be around. You're going to love to meet him. Guess what? If this person's an interacting socializer, they're like, oh, he sounds like a great guy. I want to meet him now. Okay, I'll be there. But I don't stop there, because what if you're talking to someone who's a cautious thinker? If you said just those three things, and you're talking to a cautious thinker, or a cautious thinker is listening into what you're saying, they're not interested yet, but until you hit the last point. And I say, but above all else, Mr. Parkhill's an expert. He knows 100% of the information. There's literally no one else in my mind that knows the information better than this gentleman, and I'm so shocked that he's going to be actually at my house this Friday evening. Guess what? A cautious thinker is like, oh, he knows 100% of the information? That's who I need to talk to. I'm not going to even talk to you anymore, because obviously you don't know 100%, but this person knows 100%, that's who I need to talk to, because I want 100% of the information. You see how this works? You see how edification works with knowing the personality types? So, Mr. Parkhill, I want to meet me now. So again, these slides, I'm going to make them available to you so that you can go back and review this, because I know there's a lot to review. So to really sum this up, I'm going to tell you a quick story that I think sums it up. Because again, we think in pictures, we think in stories, and if it's hard for you to remember the 4 personality types, think of this story. This story has to do with 4 knights that lived in medieval times and during a kingdom, and these 4 knights were actually accused of a horrific crime. It was a crime that they were accused of, but they all said that they were not guilty of the crime. But either way, they were actually found guilty, and the punishment for the crime was a public execution, none other than being beheaded by the guillotine. So the day of the public execution came, all 4 knights were marched out into the public square where everyone could see. And one by one, and what happened was the king created a guillotine specifically for this event, and he had it built where it was one guillotine with 4 slots for all 4 of the knights to rest their heads into, and that way they could all be executed at the same time. So one by one, the executioner, the royal executioner, put all 4 of the knights into position, into the guillotine, and then looked up at the king, and the king was watching from a distance where he could see from his royal tower, and the king gives the command to have them executed, and with that command, the royal executioner swung his mighty axe and chopped the rope, and the guillotine blade began to fall. But then the guillotine blade stopped just inches from touching any one of their necks. The rope actually had got tangled up in the pulley up above. But from the distance, the king couldn't tell that the rope got tangled. He just saw that the blade stopped, and so he saw this as a sign from above that the knights were innocent. So he declared that they were innocent, and he declared that they could be let free. And as they were being let go, each knight decided that they wanted to express themselves in the way that they naturally express themselves. And, of course, they all had 4 different personalities. I want to leave that out. So the first knight, as the royal executioner cuts his hand, cuts the rope from his hands that tie behind his back, cuts the rope, and as soon as he gets unbound, he pushes the executioner away. He says, you see, I told you I was innocent. I told you I was innocent. Next time I speak, you listen. That was the first. Now, the second night, they started letting him go, and as soon as they unbind his hands, he looks at both of his hands, and all of a sudden, he just puts his hands out into the sky. He says, woo-hoo! I'm free! Party at my house! Everyone's invited! Let's go! That was the second night. Now, the third night, they let him go, and immediately as they let him go, he turns to the royal executioner. He grabs the royal executioner's hand, and he says, I just want you to know that I don't hold you personally responsible for any of this. I know you just had a job to do, and so don't feel bad. In fact, why don't you and your wife come over to my house later for dinner? And that was the third night. But the fourth night, they let him go. And that fourth night, just looking confused, and he's just scratching his head, looking at the guillotine, and he's looking at the guillotine up and down, and he looks up and he says, hey, I see the problem. I love that story, guys. I crack myself up every time, and I wish I could hear you guys, but I love that story. But it does a good job really explaining the 4 personality types and how they work. And if you understand these 4 personality types and how to adapt to them, most importantly, you're going to be able to have success dealing with people. And it's not going to be something you can do overnight. You're going to have to practice. You're going to have to get outside of your comfort zone. It will not feel normal, but I promise you, if you do it, if you identify the person and the type of personality that they are, and you decide to adapt your way of communicating with them, you get outside of your comfort zone. What you're actually doing does not make you feel comfortable, but makes them feel comfortable. Just watch to see the type of positive results you're going to get from that interaction. And if you keep doing that over and over and over, you will have a business like no one else has, because you'll truly have a team full of all types of personalities and building like never before. So that really wraps up the training. I do want to open it up for any questions and answers. So if you have anything as far as questions, type it on the left in the chat, and I'll make sure to hit that for you. I am going to put up the pictures of the books. Again, for those who want to know what these books are, you can definitely go out and get the details of the books. Is there any questions, specifics about how to deal with any type of personality that you're dealing with that you want? And if not, there's no questions, I'm going to go ahead and unmute everybody and just say goodbye to everyone. Joey Marino, you are Lion. Lion Fox. Lion Fox, Joey. First personality, Lion. Second personality, Fox. Oh, yes, don't let me forget. I want to give you guys something. That's right. So I'm going to give you guys something. A couple things. Number one is I'm going to give you, all right, the link that just popped up is actually a behavioral test that if you want to know what personality you are, just download this, follow the instructions, take the test quickly, and send me the results. If you send me the results, I will let you know exactly what you come out to be. Because I don't have a key with it, because if I gave you the key, then I think people would look at the key and they actually wouldn't answer the questions honestly. So I like it when people don't know what the results are going to be. You just literally answer it to the best of your ability, be completely honest, and then we'll be able to tell you exactly what it is. So that's the behavioral test. And for all those who want to have the actual PowerPoint, let's see, where are you? Here you are. The next link that I sent you there is the PowerPoint. So feel free to click on those so that you can have the PowerPoint and you can have the test. All right, and yeah, I'll see if I can send it on GroupMe as well. But yeah, I will. I forgot you guys have your actual own group, so I will do that too. I will post it. I might have to put it in Dropbox first, but then I'll post it onto the GroupMe for you guys as well. So that's everything. I'm gonna take you guys off mute so everyone can say goodbye, and have a great evening. I hope that was helpful for you guys. And that's wraps up everything. So guys, have a good night. Appreciate your time and attention, and we'll see you on the next Inner Circle training. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.